Hey crew, we have done a lot of different builds over the past week using updated exotics or changes to subclasses that Bungie has implemented, and today is no different. I was actually very surprised how this build performed, and it's thanks to a few subclass updates, but the main thing is our exotic weapon that got a big buff this season, and in turn, because that buff happened, it basically indirectly buffed or stealth buffed, whatever you want to call it, a certain exotic armor piece on the Warlock because how the two interact with each other, and this exotic armor was already top tier, and now with this exotic combo working together, it will be one of the best Arc Warlock builds that you have ever played on yet. Kinda just like the Gerfalcon's Void build. Now the first one is the exotic weapon Coldheart, and we actually used this in a Stasis Hunter build a few days ago, and it was fantastic. So I decided to revisit it with the Arc Warlock, and I am so glad I did because it basically buffs our exotic armor piece for us. So the changes to the exotic Coldheart is that it maxes out stability and reload speed at max damage, but the two main things here is picking up an Ionic Trace now reduces the time it takes to get max damage, so we reach that threshold way quicker. But then to top it all off, we have reduced cooldown on Ionic Trace generation from 3.5 seconds to 2 seconds, so almost half the time there. So now we essentially generate an Ionic Trace on demand with a powerful weapon, and what makes Ionic Traces so good right now is they give roughly about 13% ability energy to all three abilities, so your class ability, your melee ability, and your grenade ability. And remember, it's only damaging of enemies that procs the Ionic Traces, so you don't have to kill anything or use X ability then do X thing. It's straight up just damage over time. So this can be accomplished in all difficulties in the game, and actually gets even better the higher you go because you're going to be creating those Ionic Traces every 2 seconds with Coldheart. So that alone is pretty strong on any subclass or build because we love ourselves some abilities here if you watch any of my videos. And if you are new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you can see a ton of awesome builds. And if you would like to support a bit extra, the link to the YouTube member section is in the pinned comment, and if you choose to be a member, thank you very, very much. I really appreciate the extra support. Now, since we can generate Ionic Traces very quickly on demand with Coldheart, we can use an exotic armor piece that basically gets buffed from Coldheart, and that is the Great Fallen Sunstar exotic. I actually think this is my first YouTube video using this exotic, as I don't think I made a video on it last season because, you know, everyone made a video on it. But what this helmet does is the armor perk Ionic Conductor. Ionic Traces you create move faster and grant you additional ability energy. This additional ability energy is literally like 30% ability energy to all three of your abilities. So that means if you grab 3 to 4 Ionic Traces from Coldheart alone, which would take around 8 seconds to create, you will have all 3 abilities back. And then to take it even further, it's crazy to see your abilities come back in seconds thanks to the rest of the subclass setup we're going to be running, with the aspects and fragments and how you can create a ton of Ionic Traces. Now the second part here of the exotic is you also give nearby allies ability energy when you collect an Ionic Trace, which you are collecting a lot of them, especially with Coldheart. This is the base 13% ability energy for all their abilities as well, so now you're helping out the team a lot and going to do that even more thanks to Arc Souls and the 50% damage bonus they got, that you can also give this to all your fire team members. So now you're applying the Arc Souls to your entire team, and you're generating Ionic Traces for your entire team, and you're taking double dipping into those Ionic Traces yourself because of the helmet. So basically, in a way, Fallen Sunstar got its stealth buff or an indirect buff because of Coldheart, and when you pair these two exotics together, kind of like Gerfalcons and Fighting Lion, you have this awesome setup. Now with the subclass, we're going to be able to make more Ionic Traces than you will know what to do with, and our mod choices are going to be buffing our weapon damage so we can hit hard with Coldheart or other weapons, since we don't need any extra ability energy because our subclass and exotics handle all those. For the subclass, Chaos Reach is still the best super you want to be using. Also, if you apply Jolt to a target before you use Chaos Reach, it makes Chaos Reach hit just a little bit harder, so make sure to tag him with the grenade and then pop Chaos Reach on the enemy. Next, you want to be using the Healing Rift. We're going to use this in conjunction with our Arc Souls, so take advantage of that. And then I'm using Ball Lightning because it's ranged and it got a little bit of a buff to its range, but this will also stun unstoppable champions for us with an artifact mod, so we want to have range with that so we don't have to be up and close personal to them. And then I'm using Storm Grenade. Use whichever grenade you want to use. Pulse Grenade's really good, Storm Grenade's also good. Whatever one you want to use it. For the aspects, we're using Arc Soul. Cast your Rift to create an Arc Soul. That's how you create that sentient turret that's going to shoot things for you. While amplified, your Arc Souls are supercharged and gain increased fire rate. So that's how they become a little bit stronger, and we're going to get our Rift back when we're near allies as well with this build. Next, we have Electrostatic Mind. Defeating targets with arc abilities or defeating jolted, blinded targets create Ionic Trace. Collecting Ionic Trace makes you amplified. So we're always going to be amplified for our Arc Souls because of Coldheart and because of Electrostatic Mind, and that's how we're going to spawn all the different types of Ionic Traces with this build. For your 4 fragments, we're taking Spark of Resistance for that extra damage reduction when we're near enemies. Spark of Beacons, while you're amplified, your Arc special weapon Final Blows create a blinding explosion. Coldheart does this for us because we're always amplified and it's our Arc special weapon. And then we have Spark of Discharge, Arc weapon Final Blows have a chance to create Ionic Trace, so that's another way we're spawning traces. And then when they're blinded from the Spark of Beacons, that can also spawn us traces because of Electrostatic Mind aspect. And then we have Spark of Shock, your Arc Grenades jolt targets, so when we defeat those jolted targets, that's also going to create Ionic Traces because of Electrostatic Mind. And also by applying Jolt to things, it's going to allow us to do more damage to stuff like champions or bosses with our Chaos Reach or whatever weapons we're using. So really, like on those Overload champions, the reason I threw my grenade first and then went in with my Coldheart is because I wanted them jolted to add that extra damage. And when a Trace Rifle applies its damage over time, it's going to create that jolt to go off more and more and shock enemies around them and also deal more damage to that individual target. For the stats on the build, you want to aim for 100 Resilience because that's your extra damage reduction. I have 100 Discipline, and then your third stat can be whatever you want. For the mods on the build, we want to always make sure we have ammo. So in my helmet, I had double Trace Rifle ammo finders to find enough ammo for that Trace Rifle, so I always have ammo. And then I also had Font of Might, so when we pick up an Elemental Well, we'll get that 25% weapon damage boost for 10 seconds. On my gauntlets, I have Elemental Ordnance, so my grenade can make an Arc Elemental Well. And then you also want to put your champion mods on your gauntlets as well. On your chest piece, I had Counter Charge. This can also be Elemental Charge, but Counter Charge from the artifact is Become Charged Light whenever you or a member of your fire team stuns a champion. So in champion content, I'm going to use Counter Charge, but if this was just general content, then you use Elemental Charge. Also, I had a Trace Rifle Reserve, and you can slot in a second one or throw in a damage reduction there. For your boots, because you're always charged with light with this build, you want to run High Energy Fire. That's going to give you an extra 20% damage boost on your weapon all the time, basically, because you're going to be charged with light all the time. And we also have a Trace Rifle Scavenger, so we can get bonus ammo when we pick up ammo. On our class item, we have Elemental Time Dilation. That's going to make Font of Might last close to 15 seconds instead, so our damage lasts longer, and Font of Might and High Energy Fire do stack together, which is nice. And then when you're by yourself, you want to be running Solo Operative, and then also you want to be running Low Entropy on your class item as well. Stasis and Arc melee abilities stun unshielded champions. So my Arc melee was able to stun unshielded champions. And then I also had a utility kickstart on there just to kickstart that rift a little bit. Overall, it's a great build, and I feel like this is the strongest an Arc Warlock has been now. The Arc Souls hit much harder. The Trace Rifle Coldheart hits pretty hard, and you're getting that ability energy coming back, which just allows you to loop all the abilities very, very infinitely, and you're giving bonus energy to your teammates while you're with them. So this is by far the strongest an Arc Warlock has felt to me, and I hope you guys give it a try. I really enjoyed playing it. It's some of the most fun I've had on an Arc Warlock now, and if you give it a try, I know you'll like it. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you guys all in the next video. Have a great rest of your day.